What if I told you there's a public state forest in Massachusetts where hikers report shadow figures, where legends say small trickster creatures watch from the trees, where people whisper about cult activity, and where very real tragedy has left permanent scars in the soil? This is not an abandoned asylum, not a condemned building, and not a made for TikTok ruin. This is Freetown-Fall River State Forest, and maybe one of the most unsettling forests in America. So let's get into it. So, where exactly is the forest? Freetown-Fall River State Forest sits in southeastern Massachusetts. On paper, it's just over 5,000 acres of hiking trails, ponds, and wooded conservation land. But it also lies inside what's known as the Bridgewater Triangle, a roughly 200 square mile area associated with decades of strange reports. The term was coined in the 1970s by researcher Lauren Coleman, who documented clusters of UFO sightings, Bigfoot reports, thunderbirds, ghost encounters, poltergeist activities, and cryptids tied to local folklore. Freetown State Forest is often described as the epicenter of that triangle. But here's the real question: is it actually paranormal, or is something else going on? One of the forest's most famous landmarks is the Profile Rock, a massive rock formation that resembles the side profile of a face. Some believe it depicts a Wampanoag chief. Others say it's a simple natural erosion. But folklore tells deeper stories. The region has long been associated with beings from Algonquian legend known as Pugwudgies. They are described as small, human like trickster spirits said to inhabit wooded areas. In traditional stories, they could lure people into the forest, manipulate light, cause mischief or harm, and disappear into trees. Modern retellings often exaggerate these beings into horror movie monsters, but originally they were complicated, not purely evil and not purely good. And that's interesting, because forests themselves feel like that, neutral but not tame. Some visitors to Profile Rock claim to see shadow figures sitting on the stone at dusk. Others report sudden feelings of being watched. And the stories, they don't stop there. Now, if you research Freetown State Forest online, you'll quickly run into references to occult rituals, animal mutilations, and satanic activity. Much of this narrative exploded during the 1980s and 1990s, the height of what historians now call the Satanic Panic. Nearby Fall River, Massachusetts was already dealing with highly publicized murder cases framed around alleged ritual abuse. Fear spreads easily when headlines are loud. And when you combine dense woods, isolated clearings, graffiti, and abandoned debris, people start seeing intention. Now, here's the psychological twist. If a place gets labeled ritualistic, every random burned log or broken branch suddenly feels deliberate. Fear does have a way of editing reality. But still, this forest reputation didn't form from rumor alone, because there are documented tragedies here. In 1978, 15-year-old Mary Lou Arrudo was abducted and later found in Freetown State Forest. Her body was tied to a tree. And this is not legend, it is fact. And cases like this matter when discussing hauntings, because places where violent trauma occurred often become emotionally charged in public memory. Over the decades, the forest has been connected to multiple violent incidents and discoveries of remains. Most recently, in 2025, skeletal remains of two individuals were discovered deep within the woods, reportedly alongside a suicide note. When people say the forest feels heavy, this is part why. Not ghosts, not monsters, but grief. Forests hold things, not supernaturally, but historically. And history has weight. Now, despite the grounded explanations, the reports continue. Visitors have claimed shadow figures moving between trees, sudden cold spots, disembodied whispers, orbs in photographs, electronic malfunctions, and the feeling of being followed. Some paranormal investigators have labeled it one of the most active areas in Massachusetts. So let's conclude before we get into some theories of what we do know about this forest. It sits inside an already mythologized region. It contains a famous landmark with indigenous folklore ties. It has documented violent crime history. It became entangled with satanic panic era fear and is physically dense, isolating, and acoustically deceptive. That combination creates what I call a reputation vortex. Once a place crosses a certain threshold in public imagination, every strange experience reinforces the legend, and the legend feeds itself. So here are my thoughts on this case before we close this out. The question remains, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did unexplained activity actually spark this forest reputation? Or did the forest naturally isolating heavy atmosphere plant the seed and the stories grew from there? Because let's think about it. Dense woods, limited light, sound distortion, history soaked in tragedy, and an already mythologized region inside the Bridgewater Triangle. If you walk into a place knowing its reputation, your brain is already on alert. And when we're on alert, we interpret neutral stimuli as meaningful. That rustle isn't just wind, that shadow isn't just a shadow, that feeling isn't just adrenaline. But of course, here's the other side. What if the repeated reports across decades aren't just coincidence? What if certain environments amplify something we don't fully understand? There are places in the world where strange reports cluster. And even skeptics have to admit, clustering is interesting. It's not proof, but interesting. Maybe the forest didn't start haunted. Maybe tragedy imprinted something on it. Or maybe human belief itself is the catalyst. Fear spreads, story spreads, reputation spreads. And once enough people expect something strange to happen, sometimes strange things start happening. Maybe not because of spirits, but because perception changes behavior. And behavior changes experiences. Or maybe that willingness to believe in something more allows the forest to be itself more. So, is the Freetown State Forest haunted? Or is it a perfect storm of environment, history, folklore, and expectation colliding in one patch of woods? So personally, I definitely believe the forest is emotionally charged. It's layered with folklore, tragedy, fear, cycles, and decades of storytelling. And maybe that's how memory attaches itself to the land. And maybe the beliefs are just catalysts for the spiritual side of the forest to be able to branch out, so to speak. Alrighty, thank you for listening. And if you like stories like this, please subscribe and let me know what you think about this story down below in the comments. And as always, stay curious and stay tuned into the supernatural. Thanks for watching.